What if I told you that you could play Death's Oath and actually have damage? With a bunch of new uniques, Death's Oath is enabled to get a lot more damage than we could ever get before, and also get some serious single target. We got a lot to talk about. Let's jump in. So the first thing I want to talk about is the Death's Oath. This is a body armor that grants you Death's Aura. This is a righteous fire-like effect that does damage in a circle around you. It causes you to take a little bit of negligible chaos damage, and this aura can be scaled to be basically the entire size of your screen. What usually makes Death's Oath so challenging is the lack of scalability. You basically can use increased chaos damage, increased aura effect, which is pretty hard to get in large quantities, generic increases to damage, minion damage if you take that node in the tree that converts minion damage to player damage, but you very quickly run out of options. That's where a new unique ring, the Sundered Will, comes in. The Sundered Will allows us to get a huge amount of more damage for our Death's Oath, and we are nearly at 2 million damage on our Death's Oath, which is, I think, maybe higher than I've ever seen before, but it requires some very specific scaling. This ring says increases and reductions to chaos damage will apply to effective auras from chaos skills at 15% of their value up to a maximum of 150%. Now, we did some extensive testing here, and this ring can be worn 2 times to have the requirement that you need to get to that 150 max. Now, wearing 2 rings doesn't give you 300% max aura effect, but it does significantly reduce the requirement of increased chaos damage, making it much more feasible to hit that max. The rings themselves are not bad. They give increased area effect of aura skills, which we use 2 of. It gives chaos res, attributes, and even a little bit of max chaos res. Now, the downside is reduced reservation efficiency, which we easily deal with because we don't run that many auras. So, provided we get 500% increased chaos damage, we will get 150% increased aura effect for chaos skills. That's effectively 2.5 times damage for our Death's Oath. That also means we're getting 500% chaos damage that really helps scale it as well. So now that we have the Sundered Will and we have all this incredible aura effect, what are we doing with it? Well, we're also wearing an Impresence to give us a free to spare curse that is innate blasphemy. Because we're scaling a ton of AoE and a ton of aura effect, this makes our Despair Blasphemy do a ridiculous amount of minus res to enemies, making them incredibly vulnerable to chaos hits and poisons, which is where our single target comes in. We are wearing the new Foulborn Doedri's Scorn, which gives socketed gems are supported by level 30 Impending Doom. Impending Doom is a skill that is pretty complex, but the easy version is this. When you overwrite a curse on an enemy, you get an explosion. Level 30 Impending Doom does somewhere between 6,000 and 9,000 damage, which is an incredible amount. We use the Vixen's Entrapment Gloves in order to get a trigger for our curse spells, which will allow us to overwrite the conductivity that we use at base, which is our throwaway skill, and then we get to apply punishment, enfeeble, and temporal chains to the enemy. Our blasphemy will always be applied to the enemy because it's an aura. So that gives us 4 curses on the enemy and our single throwaway curse of conductivity, which ends up being a huge amount of damage. My endgame DPS was about 25 million, and this allows us to run any map mod in the game and only have to press our Impending Doom every once in a while. This build was phenomenal to play. I got up to level 99 about as fast as I ever have before, blasting tier 17s, basically never dying. Now, you're going to see a Mageblood in the POB because I have one, so I used it, but the truth is you actually don't need it, and I included a separate POB that does not have a Mageblood. The truth is I wasn't even super happy with how I used my Mageblood flasks, and I probably could have done it better, but I'll leave that up to you to decide. So offensively, we have our huge Despair Curse. We have our Death's Oath aura at around 1.8, 1.9 million damage, and we have our big Impending Doom explosions for killing bosses. Something important to note about Impending Doom is that you can actually get overlaps if you have enough area. And if you get enough area, you can even use Awaken Spell Cascade to get a 3rd overlap and get you to dot cap. I did not do that in this build, but it is definitely doable. And if you really want to push this build, that's what I recommend doing. Now, defensively, we have a number of layers that we use. And on first glance, this build may seem kind of squishy, but it's actually incredibly tanky. I'm pretty sure I went from 96 to 99 without a single death, but this build can die, of course. We have 78 block with energy shield gain on block. We take 60% of our damage to our life and 40% to our ES using EB Mind Over Matter. We have life leech, life regen. We have ES recovery through regen and recharge. We have 85 max res for elements and 80 for chaos. We use the incredibly powerful Molten Zoffgraft with full uptime. We'll get into that more later. And then we have the Enfeeble Curse, which makes enemies deal significantly less damage. There's also a number of conditional buffs that we have that give us some offense and some defense that are not ticked in the POB, but something like Maddening Presence when you kill a rare or unique, which is on our amulet, is going to make you a little bit tankier in maps. All in all, I give this build a 9.5 out of 10. I haven't actually tried Ubers on it yet because I just don't really like doing Uber bosses, but I easily was doing tier 17s as you saw in the footage, and I know it could take down all Ubers. I'll probably do that on stream today, so come and check me out, twitch.tv/AER0__. I'll probably die from time to time, so no XDD chatting if I rage. So let's jump in game and take a look at the character, and I'll explain the complex interactions so you can get started in playing this build. Let's go. Okay, so here we have level 99 CDCU later. This is actually originally going to be a Plague Bearer build, but the idea that I had originally came with just too many complications. So we switched to my backup, which is going to be Death's Oath, and it ended up being significantly better than I expected. So number one, let's talk about the wand. You can craft this yourself pretty easily. Basically what you want to do is you want to get a kinetic base, something that has cannot roll caster modifiers with a fractured chaos dot multi on it. You then can spam a cast speed essence until you hit tier 1 dot multi, and then what I ended up doing was using Veiled Orbs and Wild Bristle Matrons until I hit chaos damage. It took me 13 tries, which ultimately meant this wand was about 14 divs total to make. But to be honest, I don't know if it's worth that many retries in order to get that extra damage over time. You could go for a trigger wand and do something with the trigger, such as an Enduring Composure setup alongside of a Forbidden Rite trigger, which is probably what you should do. And then you can just craft chaos damage because we end up getting more than the 500 that we need. So getting exactly 60 or more on the wand is not that important. For the helmet, you definitely want to get a 2% regen implicit. Regen is a premium in this build. We want to be able to regen our ES and our life. Because we have so many different sources of recovery, we actually can do all map mods. So the setup with our curses is pretty important. We have the Impresence, which is giving us the Blasphemy Despair, which is here, and this is going to be up all the time. Then we cast Conductivity in our helmet, and that triggers all three of our curses in our gloves. Vixen says trigger a socketed curse spell when you cast a curse spell with a 0.25 second cooldown. Now, as far as I can tell, this is the correct setup. This is the best way to do this. Conductivity is always going to get removed, but you can make sure that you're doing this right by jumping in game, running towards a boss, probably want to pull off your Death's Oath, but run towards an enemy, curse them with your Conductivity, and then pause the game. And then you can look at what curses are on top of the enemy to make sure that you have the things right. I'm pretty sure they all have to be the same level. I think that can cause some issues, but otherwise, if you follow the setup I have here, that's the way to go. Now, the elephant in the room here is additional curse on my Impresence. This is hard to get. There's not going to be many of these out there. So what you can do if you don't have this is you just drop Punishment, which is not really a huge damage boost for us, and then just get whatever implicit that you want, corrupted or otherwise. Just use this punishment for an extra gem that can do whatever you want. On the Foulborn Death's Oath, you really care about the increased effect of Withered, but also attributes are pretty important. You end up needing to get a decent amount of strength, and I have to get a large cluster jewel that has one. So the more attributes you have, the better. And then because not many people are corrupting these, it's really hard to get max res. That's what I wanted because I went for these flasks, but not really that important. On the Sundered Will, the most important thing is getting a perfect roll of reduced reservation efficiency. Now, if you don't get a perfect roll, you can just drop the level of your vitality, which I have here at level 7. Obviously, that's not very good, but if we shut off our vitality, you'll see that we have a decent bit of unreserved mana. If you get lower rolls on this, you can just drop the vitality. The more life regen you have, the better, but this makes it so you can get it started a little bit cheaper. You also need to have a 15 out of 15 on the increases and reductions to chaos damage also apply to effective auras. That is absolutely mandatory. And then after that, chaos res, increased area, effective aura skills, attributes, they're all pretty good. Now for the shield, this can be pretty expensive. Do not go for avoid elemental ailments. You absolutely don't want to waste your time trying to get this. You just want to use a Storm Shroud and then get Shock Avoid on your boots. I found this and was able to purchase this, which made it viable, but there's no simple way to craft it. What you care about the most is energy shield on block and increased reservation efficiency, and then as much regular block as you can get. A tier 1 roll is great. You're probably not going to find too many of those on the market, and they can be pretty tough to craft. Obviously, a Mage Blood is great. It makes you go fast, but it is far from necessary. If I were to rebuild this build, I probably would drop all 3 of these res flasks, go for a silver flask, which you have to make sure that you balance your cast speed so that you don't have too much for your trigger rate. Because Impending Doom is a trigger from casting your curses, if you have too much cast speed, it'll actually lower your damage. I use a Forbidden Taste here, but I think what you should actually do in the endgame is drop this for a Progenesis and then maybe grab these recoup nodes here. In order to use a Progenesis, you have to have some life recovery. So these 3 nodes will offset the self-damage of a Progenesis, and that'll feel probably really, really good. But for now, I have a Forbidden Taste with use when you take a savage hit. So if I take a huge hit to my life, I immediately get healed from this flask. And then I take a trivial amount of chaos damage that just gets absorbed by my life regen. So there's a couple of things I need to point out with the gems. I'm not going to go over all of them. You don't need to 6-link your chest. They all are going to support the death aura regardless. One of the things that we put in here is a life tap. Life tap allows us to put in things like less duration and swift affliction because it gives it the duration tag. We don't actually get a life tap from Foulborn Death's Oath, but we do get it from our movement skills. We have 2, Withering Step, which we're pressing on cooldown, and then Flame Dash we're pressing whenever we absolutely have to. The playstyle of this build is best done when you keep up as much of your Withering Step as possible, as it increases your damage and makes you run faster. Whenever you press one of these, you're going to get life tap. You want to make sure that you have max quality on this so your life tap lasts longer. As long as we press one of our movement skills every 6.3 seconds, we're getting all of the benefits of the life tap in the chest. In practice with all of our duration, you actually get 9.1 seconds out of life tap, which means you really don't have to press your stuff very often. For our Grafts, I'm using an Enervating Grasp Draining Esh Graft. This is going to give us a lot of nice benefits. We're going to sap enemies. You basically just cast it on the ground. It spawns a bunch of hands, and when the enemy runs over the hands, they get sapped. That makes them deal less damage. Obviously, that doesn't show up in our POB because I don't have it ticked, but on bosses, you should have that almost full uptime. It's a very small amount, but it's nice to have. We also get some energy shield and AoE from this. And then we are using the Molten Zoff graft. I made a video about this graft specifically and how incredibly strong this is. It says skills used by this graft have 75% increased CDR, and I believe as long as you get 69%, you can get full uptime. The Heart of Flame is basically like a molten shell effect, and it's incredibly, incredibly strong. You need to use the Rune Graft of the Warp to make it so buffs on you expire slower. So when we cast a spell, it costs some life. We go below full life, and it immediately triggers our Heart of Flame. And then once it's going to expire, you can start casting again, and you'll refresh it before it's even done. This basically gives us 3,200 life on top of our already sizable pool. It's why the POB EHP is not entirely accurate, because we have this up pretty much all the time that we're casting our spells. So on the tree, a few important things. You need to make sure that you have enough poison chance to get to 100%. I grab 1 Septic Spells. I don't even take this poison note here because I just tattoo my int to give me global poison chance, which also works for my Occultist explosions. Our large cluster jewels are super, super powerful. You want your large cluster jewel to have 35% effect, all res, and max life. I'm way overdone on reses because I also have the res flasks, so this is not the most efficient setup at the current moment. But what this also allows you to do is if you get more than 100 fire res and a more than 100 chaos res over, which I will do when I swap out this one for a better one. This cluster is actually terrible. You can run red altar mods that reduce your res by 100%, so double the effect and still have capped res. So that's what I'm going for because I prefer red altars. But if you play blue, you can do cold and lightning res over cap. So on this one, you do have to get a strength roll. I think 4 is the minimum that you need, but obviously more would be better. These clusters are giving us 160% increased chaos damage each, which is 320 total, getting us more than halfway to the 500 we need for the rings. It's also solving our strength, it's giving us life, and it's giving us res. It's super, super good. These are not too expensive to buy, but you can definitely craft them if you're looking to go for perfect. We have a number of jewels in here. Your ideal jewel is going to look like this. It's going to have dot multi, chaos dot multi, life, and then block. Whether you need attack or spell is up to you and up to your specific build, but this is basically a perfect jewel. This one has Corrupted Blood on it. Got another very good jewel here. Our Watcher's Eye, you want to get spell block and damage over time multiplier while affected by malevolence. I also was lucky enough to get one with Leech with Vitality, which is very, very good. Once you have something like this, you can easily run a Progenesis. I run 3 different medium clusters at the moment. Septic Spells and Brush with Death is really nice because Brush with Death gives us some recovery on kill, life, and ES. You can run 2 of these if you want, but I found 1 was plenty. And basically while mapping, you're always going to be topped off. I can basically AFK breaches and stay at full health. Sometimes hives are tough because they're a little bit more open. So maybe you want to run 2 of these if you want to AFK the hives, but Brush with Death is super nice. Septic Spells gives us some chance to poison as well, which is nice. Over here we have Flow of Life and Wicked Paul for some damage and some life and some regen. And then I think this is probably overkill. You should probably swap this out for another Flow of Life and Wicked Paul. I have Assert Dominance and Towering Threat. This is giving us more AoE, 35% and then 8% increased max life. We're using an Impossible Escape to get Inexorable, and we're using Deflection over here. I actually don't think that that's the best setup. I think you're better off using a small cluster with Enduring Composure and then self-hitting with a Trigger Wand or simply just waiting for enemies to hit you. My endurance charge up time is very bad, even with both of these, because I never get hit. But even when I do, it's only 25% chances. I definitely don't recommend this setup. However, as the mountain is really, really nice, we get all of this extra attack block. So still very, very strong. There are other options. You don't have to get the 78, but it is really cozy. You could get an impossible escape at glancing blows, take sanctuary and the nodes around it, maybe tireless, but getting as much block as you can is really important. Okay, so one last thing, we're just going to talk about aiming. I probably should have addressed this earlier, but if you're still watching, you're going to learn how to properly aim this skill. And also, if you're still watching, you probably like the video, so go down below, click the like button, maybe drop a comment. So the way that Impending Doom works with Spell Cascade is it casts a number of curses. So depending on where you point your mouse, you'll see that there are overlaps where the circles overlap each other. The farther you aim away, as you can tell here, the overlaps change position. So if the boss is right in front of you and you aim on the other side, you'll see you'll get overlaps all in this area here. So you want to aim basically a little bit behind the boss in order to get that overlap perfect. Super easy, just got to pay a little bit of attention. So that is going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you stop by my Twitch. I am live every single day, and I will be live right after this video, probably playing more of this build. So come check me out and drop the Twitch Prime, twitch.tv/AER0__. All of my links are in the description, including the POB and the non-Mageblood POB. And that's that. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, take care.